Welcome guys to the Gigabyte B360M D3H BIOS presentation. In order to access the BIOS of this motherboard, it's very simple. We need to open the Gigabyte App Center, considering we have installed it, and select the Fast Boot menu. This menu will appear. You can see here, you can select the BIOS Fast Boot. Make sure to have it on ultra fast, and after a AC power loss, next boot, make sure to have it on again fast boot. Also here you have this big blue highlighted option, enter BIOS setup now. Click on it. The system will reboot and enter straight into BIOS. This is the first time I will see the BIOS of this specific motherboard, but otherwise I am very familiar with it, this being my third motherboard of the D3H variant. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 main tabs. The MIT, System, BIOS, Peripherals, the chipset, Power, and finally Save and Exit menu. In the MIT menu, we have the system information. You see here the model name of the motherboard, B360M D3H. The BIOS version, the F6 one. Apparently this is the latest BIOS version that can be installed while having a 8th gen CPU. Currently there is an F10 BIOS version available, but that is optimized for Intel upcoming 9th gen 9000 CPUs line, and I think that's why it doesn't work. The BIOS date you can see here, so 13 of July 2018, and pretty much this sums the MIT. The first window. So in the MIT tab, we have the advanced frequency settings, advanced memory settings, the voltages, PC health status, miscellaneous, and the Smart Fan 5 settings. Let's click on every one. The frequency settings. So here try to use the, I will use the keyboard and the keyboard's arrows. You have here the CPU clock ratio. You see the frequency 3.7 gigahertz. This you better leave it just as the way it is. The advanced CPU core settings you can enter in this, but I really prefer to leave everything on auto here, since I don't plan to do any overclocking with my Pentium Gold G5400. Click Escape to come back in the previous menu. The system memory multiplier, it's 2133 on auto, but you will see this memory will very easily be boosted up to 2400 megahertz because the motherboard and the CPU supports it. This motherboard I think supports even 2666 memory megahertz, but the Pentium Gold is limited to 2400. So if I would have gotten a i3-8100, I think I could have managed to take them even further. Memory ref clock, I really prefer to leave it on auto. Again, leave everything on auto because it's not worth to mess something up. Okay, let's hit escape one more time. Advanced memory settings. So here we have the same thing, the frequency of the memory. Memory enhancement settings. You can select relax overclocking, enhanced stability, normal, which was set, and enhanced performance. Well, I don't think this will do any harm. Click on enhanced performance. Memory timing, again, I'm not going to go into that, and I will leave it on auto. And here you have the first RAM stick, the channel A and channel B. Sub timings, again, you can see it at 2133 megahertz. The memory are of CL15. Let's see, right here up, the CAS latency auto 15. So the latency is 15, 15, 15, 36. After I will pump them up to 2400 megahertz, they will be on, instead of 15, they will jump to 17. Okay, let's exit this menu as well. Advanced voltage settings. Again, if you do not plan to do any overclocking, you have advanced power settings, CPU core voltage. So everything that is related to voltage, simply leave it on auto. You don't need to change anything from here. Click escape, escape one more time. PC health status. Here you can have the announce of the case if it's open or not, and some other voltage data. Escape again. Miscellaneous settings. Max link speed, it's set to auto, and 3D Mark 1 enhancement, it's click on disabled. Let's enable it. Again, it cannot hurt. And the Smart Fan 5 settings. Here you can adjust the fan speed and the noise. Unfortunately, I find out that from the Gigabyte App Center I cannot make a custom fan curve in order to have the fan as quiet as possible. And right now the only fan that spins in my case, it's the CPU fan. I had to disconnect the front case 120mm fan because it was ramped up to the max. But here you can see right now the fan speed of the CPU is at 1500, which again it's really high. And you can see also the flow rate, interesting. And the temperature right here. The PWM option is available, and here you see the CPU fan speed control. It's set to normal. we have silent, manual and full speed. Let's click silent. And it's already an improvement. And if we put it on manual, we will be able to make here a fan curve. So what I liked to do when this option was working from the Gigabyte app was to set it at 10%. As much as it would have let me. You will see that you will not be able to set it to 10% on all the graphic. So at some point, in theory, when the CPU will reach 86 degrees Celsius, like never, this will never happen. The CPU fan will go above 10%. So as you can see, at 87 degrees Celsius. But until then, it will run at 10% fan speed, which translates into about 1000 RPM. And you can see the system is already much more quiet, so it doesn't compare. Trust me, for a Pentium or an i3 or any other CPU that is not overclockable, you can leave it like this without any problem. Manual, okay. CPU fan control mode. Let's see, we have auto voltage and PWM. CPU fan stop will leave to disable. We do not want the fan to stop on the CPU ever. The system is really quiet, and this was what I was after. And again, at 1000 RPMs we're sitting at 33 Celsius. Personally, I only do web browsing, so it's all I care about. Okay, let's go back and hit escape. So the Smart Fan 5 setting in the MIT menu works. Let's go to the system. In the system we have the information, the motherboard, the BIOS version, and this basically was the first window opened in the BIOS. Let's go into the BIOS tab. And here we have this menu. In the BIOS, you can select the boot priority right here. So if you have more hard drives, or if you also have a optical drive, you will see them here. So the boot option number 1 in my case is the SSD with the Windows boot manager, so this is perfectly as it should be. Boot option number 2, it's the SATA port 0, the SSD itself, and on the SATA port 1 I have the optical drive. You have here the fast boot option, it's set on ultra fast. PS2 device support enabled. So this make sure to be on ultra fast. And VGA support EFI driver, leave it like that. USB support full initial. The mouse speed. And the Windows 8 and 10 features. Okay, simply leave them as they are. Okay, let's exit the BIOS menu. Or not. No. So from BIOS we go to the peripherals. Right here you have the RGB settings in case you have, I don't know, memories that support RGB or a GPU. The Super I/O configuration. Off-board SATA controller, simply leave them like they are. Intel BIOS Guardian technology, whatever that is, it's disabled. USB configuration. Network stack configuration. NVMe configuration. And the SATA and the rapid storage technology configuration. Here you have the SATA ports options. So we see the controller, the AHCI for the SSD. Simply I leave the hot plug disabled on all. So you can see the SSD from Samsung and the optical drive from ASUS are all the all what I have connected to the SATA ports. And also the Intel Ethernet connection. Let's see, just some information about this one. From the peripherals menu we go into the chipset, and here you'll need to change some settings regarding the integrated GPU of the CPU if you use it. So if you do not have a dedicated GPU, then you need to do these adjustments. If you have a dedicated GPU, you do not need this. Internal graphics, this should be if you do not have a separate dedicated GPU, and if you use only the integrated one from the CPU, make sure to hit enabled, the internal graphics of the CPU. And here the DVMT pre-allocated should be at max. From default is just 64 megabytes. Go down and use 1 gigabyte of memory of RAM as a video memory. This is what it does. And the DVMT total GFX memory from 256 megs. Select the max one. Most probably it will be the same, but I use like this. So here 124 megs, 1 gig of memory from RAM will be allocated to video, and here set it to max. From chipset off to power, and here just leave everything as it is. You have platform power management, AC back, power on by keyboard. I don't use these options. power on by mouse, soft off by power button, resume by alarm, and so various power settings. Finally, we come to the last tab, which is the most important. We need to save everything we changed so far before we exit. So here you have save and exit setup, or exit without saving, which is not recommended in case you want something to your changes to take place. Load optimized defaults. This will basically bring back to the initial state all the settings. And here you have the boot override. It's basically the boot priorities you set: Windows, the SSD, and the optical drive. So I will click the first option, save and exit setup. Save configuration and reset, click yes. And now we have the monitor signal. And we are back in Windows. And just to show you how easy it is to basically overclock the memories from 2133 MHz to 2400 MHz. Finally, we open the Gigabyte App Center. The system is really quiet, so the fan curve really works. In a SIV, System Information Volume, it says it will calibrate the fans, but I will hit escape and stop it. You see here it's set to standard. I will click on quiet. Okay, whatever, let's exit this menu and let's go into Easy Tune, OC Easy Tune. This is where we need to be. Click OK. And right here you can see it's 28, so basically 2133 MHz. Enter in advanced DDR-OC and simply select in the list from 2133 the 24 number and hit apply. Reboot the system. We have monitor signal. And now let's see if the memory works at 2400 MHz. OC Easy Tune. And right now you can see here down the crucial memory now is at 2400 MHz, 2394. And the same thing should be, let's calibrate the fans, so I will be able to show you even here. As you can see, unfortunately, it says it's calibrating the fans, but nothing really happens. The fan of the CPU remains at the same speed, so there's something wrong with the software. Because right now it should have been at 90% speed, the fan, and now at 100%. And it clearly isn't so, but whatever, the manual curve worked very well in the BIOS. Even here you can see the memory timings and the memory frequency. It's at 2400 MHz, so 2391, about there. It's as simple as that. I wish you all the best.